Excited because I have a special guest here today. She's actually going to talk about gardening tips. So this is going to be gardening one-on-one. If you don't know anything about gardening, if it's something that you've always wanted to do and you just don't know how, I think you should go ahead and take a seat, get your notepad, get a pen, take notes because I have Jasmin Turner in the house. She is going to walk us through gardening tips, the what's, the whens, the hows, the seasons to plant, the times and seasons to plant, and all that good stuff. So without further delay, I'm going to welcome Mrs. Turner. Jasmin Turner, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jonnie. It's good to see you. It's good to be on. I was looking forward to it. It's exciting. I'm glad more people are getting out and they're playing in dirt.
I know you are. So let's just get into it, okay? First, for starters, can you just tell people a little bit about yourself? How did you get into gardening? And if you can talk about the church that you're actually associated with, you belong to, and the community garden that your church actually has, and how you're working in that garden and actually supporting the community with the vegetables that you're growing and all that. So just give us the 101, the 411 about who Jasmin Turner is.
Okay, so I'm Jasmin Turner. I live here in Northern California. I used to live near Jonnie, but I moved about 2 hours away. And I started gardening as a little girl. I was 8 years old. I used to walk out. My grandpa lived in a small town called Wilton, which is past Elk Grove. And it's a place where you see people. It's common where their houses are on 6 to 8 acres or more. And so he in the boonies, but not too far from town, about 10, 15 minutes from town. And I would just walk with him in the garden. And so they were sharecroppers. He was the son of a sharecropper, as most African Americans were in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And so gardening was just a part of his life. So it was just what he continued to do. And so he taught me things, and he used to give me pea pods. And so like my first garden that I had was pea pods. And mustard greens are like my favorite green. And so actually I remember in our old house, actually, I had an area that I just remember saying, Grandma, I want to have a garden. I went to my grandpa's house, which is on my dad's side of the family, and I'm always growing stuff. I love picking the blackberries, but I know you're not going to let me have blackberries, but can I grow greens and tomatoes? And she said, yeah, baby, you can do whatever you want back there. And so I dug up the grass, and I was like, all I wanted was mustard greens and tomatoes, and I was satisfied. I know it's like a weird combination, so that's exactly what I grew. I planted that they're like over 5 years old for sure. So I'm gonna show you my garden here at home as well. But I attend Common Ground Covenant Church.
What's the name of the church?
Common Ground Covenant Church.
Okay.
And so we're a part of the evangelical covenant denominations. It's from it's a Swedish denomination, but one of their main focus is loving your neighbor and doing justice. Is like the heart of the denomination. And so this particular church, it wasn't at one point an all white church, but they realized the demographics in the community was changing. And they said, well, you know what, despite the cultural differences that we have, they're still our neighbor. They're still human beings. These people are still our neighbor, and we're still to love them, and we still need to be intentional. And so at this particular, about 25 years ago or more, there was a huge migration of, I believe it was men and Hmong people that moved in this neighborhood in Blacks. And so the church began to be more intentional about bridging the culture gaps with their neighbors, and not just inviting them to church, but getting a chance to know them and building relationships with them. And the men people came, and they're from like Laos, some are from Vietnam, some of them live in Thailand, and they're farmers by nature. That's what they do. That's how they survive. And they asked the pastor at the time. They said, "Hey, can we use your land? We're poor. We just got here pretty much, and we need land to grow our food." And he said, "Definitely." And some of the members were like, "Can we do that?" He said, "Yeah, we can do whatever we want. This is us walking out the scripture. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Jonnie always said, you always say that this is Acts, the Acts
The
for a
act
reason. This is
of
Acts
the
of the
apostles.
apostles for a
Yeah.
reason. And so that's kind of like the mindset of Pastor Wayne that was there years ago. And so he was like, you guys could have this garden here as long as you want. And so they have a church that's still there, still thriving, and we get together quarterly and we'll have like a mixed service because they still have service in their language.
Oh,
And
okay.
so we have a community garden, and last year they added trees.
Oh,
They
wow.
added over, they added trees. I think they added over 20 trees.
Wow.
Um, so we have citrus, we have pomegranates, we have pears. Um, Nectarines were my favorite last summer, eating the nectarines. And then we
I want some
also
pomegranates.
with some pomegranates.
Yes, yes. Okay,
uh,
go ahead.
um, no, definitely. I do want to definitely send you some, get a food basket together for you
Okay,
so you can have some.
okay.
And so I want to get you some seeds as well.
Hmm.
So we have peppers, we have tomatoes, we probably have an assorted amount of pumpkins and watermelons. I'm going to show you some of the pumpkins that I have here. I have them because one of the women that work in the garden, she gave me a handful of seeds. She said, you go home and you plant all. And I said, okay, I will do what I'm told. So we have different types of pole beans and bush beans. So there's some beans that grow as a bush, and
Hmm.
there's some beans that grow up as a pole, like rattlesnake beans. They kind of look like your pinto beans, kind of, and they just grow up real tall. I mean, they just take over. So we have that. We have mustard greens and kale.
Hmm.
Some of the kale is from the previous season, as well as the mustard green is from the previous season.
Hmm.
And we allowed them to go to seed. And what that means is we did eat off of it, but we didn't uproot the plant or nothing like that. We just left it right in the ground. We allowed it to flower. And once it flowers, it begins to form different pods. And then within these pods are the seeds, to the variety of greens that we have. And so once they dry out, we use those seeds for the next planting season. And I think that for some of you, who are grown, depending on what you're growing, it would be great if you can get seed this season, from whatever it is you're growing. So we also have a food pantry at church as well, which is, we distribute. So most cities have like centers where they have a bunch of produce
Hmm.
that food banks can come get food and distribute wherever. And so that's what our church do. But also, if there's things in our garden and I'm like, I don't want it to go to waste, I just take from our garden and just give it to the food bank at our church so they can distribute, to our neighbors, so they don't have to, so nothing goes to waste. So last year, I was able to provide some radishes, some melons, and it's open to the community. The community can come in and just pick. Like, we have these nice size planter boxes that are full of strawberries right now,
Hmm.
and they're free to come, and they're free to just pick um, whatever they want. And be honest, it is hard finding people to come to the garden because I think gardening can be intimidating, but it really is a life-giving process.
Was
Okay.
if there's somebody that wants to start a garden, but they're on a budget and they don't
Yeah.
have much space, right? So I'm
Yeah.
in the Bay Area. A lot of people, they live in condos,
Mm-hmm.
townhomes, apartment style living. So they
Mm-hmm.
don't have a lot of space. And they may say, well,
Right.
that's a great concept to garden, but I don't have a yard. So can someone
Yeah.
garden or start to, have a garden without a yard? And if so,
Such a good question.
yeah, what does that look like?
So there's different things. I'm going to show you different things. So this right here, I had salad growing in this, and I cut the salad out and I ate it, and I haven't replanted.
Okay.
But this is just a bag I got produce in at the store. This had Brussels sprouts in it, and it's recyclable.
Hmm.
And so you could definitely, grow whatever. It has holes in it. All I did is I bought some potting soil. I put potting soil in this bag. I put the seeds in it, and I just put water in it. But
Hmm.
this was cheap. I didn't. I mean, it's just reusing what you have. Also, my cousin she drinks water, and juice. This as well as alfalfa. I'm allowing this alfalfa to dry out. Some people use alfalfa in their soil because it's high in nitrogen. So this is just an old Langer's juice bottle.
Mm.
Um, and so you could easily like put herbs in here.
Turn
You
it
can
around so we
easily,
can see it. Like the other
I,
way. The other way too. Okay.
yeah.
There you go.
So I just cut the top off with a box cutter, or if you don't have a box cutter, use a knife. But I'm just allowing this to dry, and then I'm just gonna add this to my soil. It's good nitrogen. Actually, what some farmers do, I know my grandpa used to do. If he grew corn, he will in a particular area of his garden, he'll then grow alfalfa because alfalfa releases nitrogen into the soil. Um, and corn is a very greedy plant, so. Um, Another thing that you can do is just use so we shop at Costco, and we had bought some bread, and I use this to start my seedlings. This allows me to um, create that greenhouse effect where my plant is warm
Mm-hmm.
and it's still I can control it by keeping it in the house for a little while and then transplant outside, but that'll be like another video. But this is just a simple Costco container, bread container.
Wow.
All I did is put soil in here. I dropped my some people don't
And you
some
put holes in
plants
it, right?
some
For drainage, right?
yeah. So this,
You said
I
that
mean,
like,
it's
yeah,
really
sure. Like, no. Do you
well,
put
some
holes
of them
in
I
it for
didn't.
drainage for real or no?
For some I did not.
Okay.
Wait, so this one, no, I didn't put drainage in it because I use pea pods. I don't have an example of what a pea pod is, but you can Google pea pod. And it's pretty much a pod that is peat moss. And peat moss is used to block in moisture when you're germinating the seed. And they're about this thin. You put water in them, they swell up. But I had them in here, and I had seeds inside of them, and I just would water and put the top down. Put the top down to keep in the moisture, and I put this in a. We have a stand that's near the window, so that gets direct light, and so that's what I did.
Okay.
This right here, you guys, I'm sure you guys seen these before. These buckets right here, and sometimes laundry detergent comes in buckets right here. I know that old school dry, laundry detergent.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't put holes in this yet, but I plan to. So this costs at Walmart it's actually cheaper. At Walmart it's I think I saw it for $2.36 or something like that. At Home Depot these are a little under $3 still. But all I'm gonna do is put drainage holes here. I'm just gonna put get my dad's drill. Actually, I'm gonna have him do it and just drill holes in it.
Okay.
And this is about 5 gallons. And you can grow potatoes in here. You can grow radishes in here. You can put tomatoes in here. You can put eggplant in here. I think some people even put bush beans in here as well. And then another one of my things I like to use. I like these, but these are a little bit more. This is $8.99 for this. I got this from Grocery Outlet.
Mm-hmm.
This little container right here. And I'm going to drill holes in that too. And I'm going to show you that I drill
Now, how
holes
much
at the
does that
bottom.
little bin cost at
This
Grocery
costs,
Outlet?
this was $8.99 at Grocery Outlet. And I filled that with potting soil, and I have 3 of these. Only one is being used yet. I haven't drilled holes in these yet.
You broke up a little bit.
But
It
all I
said
did is
something.
put
You said
strawberries
something
in.
about potting soil. What did you say?
Oh, I'm sorry. I said I put potting soil inside,
Okay.
and I filled it with strawberries, and so you guys will see that. Something else I'm going to show you too are my kiddie pools. I love my kiddie pools. So these kiddie pools cost $10. Or if you have a relative with some babies and maybe they're not babies no more, or maybe the pool's a little damaged and they're not going to use it, you don't need that pool, do you? Give me that. Give me that pool. Grab the pool. You would drill holes at the bottom of that too.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that because all I spent was I spent $10 on the pool, I bought 2 bags of potting soil,
Mhm.
which was $12. So it cost me $22 to do this. And what you're gonna see is I have 2 pools, and one has cucumbers and flowers. The other one has a watermelon and flowers. And the reason why they call it companion planting, and the reason why you do companion planting because it's another way to fight off pests. I do have pests I have to worry about in this particular garden. My previous garden, I did not really have much to worry about, but just caterpillars and things like that. But I have a lot more pests, it seems, in this particular area that we live in now.
Mhm.
Um, and so those are some containers. And once again, yeah, bags. You can buy grow bags. They're the size of this. Some of them are like the size of this purple container, or you can make them. Some people use felt, um, and some real thin cloth
Mhm.
for them. And you can buy them. Actually, it's cheaper to buy them on Amazon because you can buy a pack
Okay.
and just fill with potting soil. And then
Okay.
for some people who are like, I don't want to spend a bunch of money on potting soil. Something that you can do with that, I had the notes, so I won't lose track, is that you can get topsoil, which is usually what people use to fill in holes in your yard. It's real cheap. You can get that for like up to $3 a bag. Some people buy it for like $1 or some change, but and it will probably look like the dirt that you have in your backyard if you have a backyard, right? If you plan on digging up an area, um, and you could use this mix for container as well. But it's to make your own fertilizer. You'll buy organic fertilizer. I like to use EB Stone, um, EB and then Stone. They're a local company right in Solano County, and so that's also a plus. I like to support local businesses,
Mhm.
um, and they have a bunch of organic products that I've never had a issue using. Um, you'll use some organic fertilizers, multi-purpose, and then there's vegetable. I get vegetable, tomato and vegetable because that's primarily what I'm growing. And I'll mix that in with the topsoil. And else I would add to the topsoil is you can add cocoa coir or peat moss. And so what they both do is they help with the moisture of your plant. Peat moss doesn't necessarily have any nutrient content, and the coconut pretty much comes from the inside of the a part of the coconut. It's dried, and they use it for different reasons, different ways to use it. But that will make your soil mix, and you can use that for the ground. And if you want to, you can add a little bit of compost to it. Compost is great. Compost is pretty much um, recycled matter. It's a natural process of pretty much veggie scraps and leaves. I actually plan to go to and if you don't have some, if you have, like I said, utilize your family members and your neighbors. If they have a tree and there's a bunch of leaves, I would be, I mean, I hope you don't think it's weird, but I mean, actually, I would do this. Hey, can I have some of your leaves? You're not using them. Give me some of your leaves. And I would use some of the leaves because it will break down and it'll bring nutrients to
Mhm.
whatever you're growing.
Okay.
Another way some people use for cover, mulch. I wouldn't worry about that too much right now. But mulch is another way to keep in moisture for your plants, and it's good to stop weeds growing. And you can use leaves, pine needles, and that's cheap too. You can buy that for a decent price at your local Home Depot or whatever store you go to. Another thing Johnny and I talked about was going to a landscape. Google a local landscaping business and see if they have compost. See, hey, I'm starting a garden. What do you have? And it's a more cost-effective way instead of buying a bunch of bags.
Mhm. Now, I just wanted to go back a little bit. I had a couple of questions. It may be on your list.
Okay. Okay.
But as you described the different soil, and then
Mm-hmm.
you were talking about how you can mix it up and all that. If there's
Mm-hmm.
someone that's a novice and a beginner,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not so savvy about all the different soils, because
Yeah.
when I first started and I went to go get soil,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, what soil do I get? Like, I thought dirt was
Yeah.
dirt, but apparently it's not. So if
Mm-hmm.
somebody is going to, really wants to like start their garden and they're hearing what you're saying, they're listening, they're taking
Mm-hmm.
notes, but they get to the store and they see potting soil and mixing soil and topsoil and compost soil. Like, what is the best all-in-one kind of soil that a
Mm-hmm.
beginner can just start off with?
Okay.
Any suggestions?
Yes. So I prefer to use, so for potting mix, and potting soil, it's pretty much the same thing. Sometimes, depending on the brand, the potting mix could be a little more woody, um, in my experience. But I like to use organic Kellogg or Edie Stone. Those are the two that or then there's another brand, I think it's called Whitney. Um, And so if you're like, hey, I have an area that I want to grow and it's a little patch of land, I will say you can buy just garden soil. Just buy some garden soil for that, right? Or potting or or compost if you want. Compost is just an additive if you want. This doesn't have to be. If you're like, hey, I'm growing in pots and I have just a couple of plants, I would say just buy some potting soil, and I would make sure I keep it organic. Miracle Grow, I prefer not to use.
Oh, I thought
Oh,
you were
I
gonna say
know. I
you. I
see.
thought you were. I'm frowning
No.
up. I said no. She did not say Miracle Grow. Oh my goodness. No,
No.
but go ahead. You're saying that's what you do not recommend. Okay.
I don't recommend. It is owned by, what is it? How you pronounce
Mon
it, Jonnie?
Monsanto.
Monsanto. Learn it. Some people they pay so much attention to their body, they can tell how certain food reacts to their body. And so, I mean, if you can't pronounce it, you can't spell, you probably don't want to grow your food in it. So, yeah, because you wouldn't eat it, right? So, yeah, I would just stick to organic. And like I said, I use Edie Stone or I use Kellogg or
Kellogg Organic.
Whitney. Yep, organic and Whitney.
Okay.
So,
And you said if you're using pots, you recommend the garden soil. Did I hear that right? Or potting
no,
soil?
so potting soil or potting mix for your pots, and then I would use gardening soil if you're gonna do a patch of land. And I also want to recommend, if you do decide, hey, I have a patch of land that I wanna use. If you have some cardboard that you haven't used, a way that some people do it, they use a no dig method. So they're not digging up their grass. They place cardboard, and I can send Johnny a link, I think, of a good example of that, where they'll lay down recycled cardboard on the ground. It's wet. You add your gardening soil that you bought, and you'll have it about 6 inches high from the cardboard. Here's the cardboard, what, about 6 inches or more, right? And you can just start planting.
Hmm.
And that doesn't have to cost a lot of money either. See
I
who
mean,
got
you
the
could probably
box.
go to a store behind the building and get some cardboard, right? Costco
Yep,
has cardboard.
yep,
Okay. Wow.
absolutely.
All
Yep.
right.
So all you're doing is paying for the soil, and your seeds should not be a lot.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then I thank you for that. I want to go back a little further. I said it was two things that came to mind
Okay.
when you were talking. You talked
Okay.
about pests. You said that
Mhm.
now you're dealing with pests. So if somebody's starting
Mhm.
out with their garden and they're just like full of zeal and excitement and they're starting out with their garden and then all of a sudden they get there and they see a bunch
Mhm.
of ants or they see a bunch of beetles or a bunch of
Yeah.
caterpillars, a bunch of whatever, and they want to get rid of them organically without
Okay.
putting a bunch of chemicals on their plants because they're going to eat their plants, their
Yeah.
vegetables. So, what do you recommend to get, rid of pests in a safe way?
In a safe way. For one, I would say, if you are considering, I would say first consider companion planting, right? So I'm going to show you my garden. I have tomatoes in the ground. I have some squash in the ground. I have some pumpkin in the ground, but I have shallots growing with it. I have some onion growing with it. Some bugs don't like the smell of that. If you like flowers, I would say marigolds, right? So I have bought some marigolds. I haven't put them in the ground yet, but I'm going to show you.
Okay.
I'm gonna plant my marigolds with my pepper. So say, Johnny, you have a nice size container, and maybe you can put a flower with it, or in chrysanthemums. If you like those, you could put chrysanthemums with your tomato or something, or
Mm-hmm.
cosmo flowers, or lemongrass, and or a lavender. Look up what can you grow with lavender. I put lavender or rosemary with a plant because the plants don't
Mm.
like the smell of that, and what it would do is mask the smell of your tomato or whatever other vegetable that you have.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
What they'll do. So actually, one morning I came and I saw a bunch of bugs on the stems of my tomato. And what I did was I got my water hose and I sprayed them off. And I got some neem oil and I sprayed neem oil. Neem oil is good, but you want to make sure it's 100% cold press.
Mm.
Read your label because you'll dilute that in some water and some soap, and you can spray that into your garden. So far, what we said is companion planting, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can use flowers or you can use another plant
Mm-hmm.
to grow with it that repels it. Peppermint oil and rosemary oil in a spray bottle. Also in a spray bottle, you can use soapy water. And some people say you could probably use any. I haven't tried it. I've only tried neem oil, but some people say you could probably use another type of oil as well because what it does, the it smothers the insect that is eating your fruits or vegetables. Yeah, it's very spontaneous. I would also say before you start planting, look up your grow zone. I can send Johnny a link for that too. But know your grow zone. I'm like 9B, and we kind of do have like a longer growing season. But if you know your grow zone, you know what you can grow in what part of the year. I always stick to the old Farmer's Almanac online. I remember when it used to be like a little pamphlet on my grandpa's table. Um, and so you can know what you should be growing, when you should be growing it. Um, you can also, if you're not sure about the soil contamination, you can get a soil test kit, follow the
Mm-hmm.
instructions. I haven't done a soil test kit for my garden here yet. I haven't used a soil test kit since high school because I did a project on it, but for a long time. But that's another way you can see the nutrients in your soil, what your soil is lacking or not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some people use water and I believe it is vinegar and do a soil test that way to see if their soil is acidic or not.
Mm.
Because just like your body needs to be a certain pH, your soil needs to be a certain pH. But you can get tests for that. You can get a test from that at your local a nursery or big box store. So those are things I want you to keep in mind
Mm-hmm.
before you start gardening. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid if, man, I don't get a lot of tomatoes this year, or I don't get a lot of peppers this year. It's a gradual process, and um, there's no such thing as failing, really. It's always learning. So,
Okay. Well, thank you very much. All right, y'all. We're going on this
yes.
grand tour.
So first, I'm going to show you my kiddie pools that I was talking about, just because I think they're really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Put my camera. So these are lemon cucumbers
Mm.
that I'm growing here. And you see in the middle, these are just flowers that I planted to go along with them because I don't want um, pests to be a problem. And so I planted some marigolds and some nitrums. I believe that's how you pronounce them um,
Mm-hmm.
to go with it. I probably did pronounce that wrong. But, and then here also, these are, so yeah, this looks different because this is, I put some compost in both of these, but I also just use a potting mix um, for it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't use any of my own earth or dirt,
Okay.
but this is pretty much my own dirt. The only thing that's in here is compost. So you're gonna see right here are and this is how I knew I had a pest problem. I was so sad because I was like, oh my gosh, my eggplant.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, so I was so upset. So this is, yeah, these are my eggplants.
Oh
Um,
wow.
this right here is okra. It's an okra plant. So I have quite a bit of okra. I have like 10 okra plants. You can tell what I like to eat. And so I haven't done any weeding yet. It's been an intense week. But these are beans. These are beans. And this particular bean plant has different colors on the stem just because of the type of bean it is.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Wow.
so, um, and then I have some sunflowers that I planted. Uh, these are sunflowers. So they're the yellow sunflowers that you're used to seeing, but there's a couple of them that are called black. I think they're called black beauties. So it would have like a red velvet type of texture look to them.
Okay.
This is a pumpkin. I've never grown this pumpkin, but this is a green pumpkin. I think from like Laos.
Hmm.
This is one of the seeds that I told you from the community garden that someone gave me and said, "Hey, grow this."
Right.
Um, this is one of the other melons that she gave me to grow.
Oh wow.
Um, this is another one. And then here goes some tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
I believe these are my brandy wine tomatoes.
Oh, okay.
And then here goes the after water, but here goes the shallots that I was telling you about that I decided to grow uh, near my tomatoes just because of the bugs.
Mm-hmm.
Here goes another brandy wine. This one right here is smaller, but this right here is a purple Cherokee tomato plant.
Wow.
This right here is oregano. This right here is chamomile, the tea that we like.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the marigolds that I was talking about that I'm gonna plant because I'm having an issue with my chard. So I did eat from my
Oh.
chard the other day,
Mm-hmm.
but so the big leaves that were here, I picked them. But here
Okay.
goes my chard that I ate yesterday.
All right. It looks good.
Thank you. This is like a jalapeno.
Mm-hmm.
That's a jalapeno. This is an Anaheim. Here goes another marigold. And this is a purple Cherokee tomato plant.
Mm.
So
You're gonna have a lot of tomatoes.
yeah, that's like one of my favorite things to eat. I used to ask my grandpa, "Can you just hand it to me? I don't need nothing. You just hand it to me." um, and so these are. I'm sorry. This is the band that I was telling you about. I showed you the purple one, but
Mm-hmm.
these are the strawberries.
Mm-hmm. They look good.
Yeah. This right here, I'm starting from seed. I bought some seeds. And this is supposed to be a merit hollow tree plant. So you see there's like two plants in here. I'm gonna pretty much divide them out and put them in their own pot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, here goes another okra plant. It's still small. I'm gonna put that in the container because I really want to see how well it does, like in a plastic container.
Mm-hmm.
Here goes a kale that I'm surprised is doing pretty good. I've been having to grow the kale in shade because it gets so hot here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this is an artichoke. Usually
Oh
people grow them a little bit
wow.
later in the year, but I have two other artichoke plants as well. Um,
Mhm.
this is and so yeah. This is carrots.
Oh, okay.
It's not ready yet because you don't see the tops of them, but Yep. And here goes to a tomato. This is I don't know why I want to call it Hush Baby, but it's not called Hush Baby. But these will this particular kind it'll be kind of like cherry tomatoes, but a little bit bigger. Um, this is my baby sun gold tomato. And I actually ate from this plant too, so there's nothing wrong with it. You probably see cornmeal because I think we have an ant hill over here, so my mom sprinkles some cornmeal. Okay. But yeah, there's some more chard. And so you can put these in a container. I have a friend, Martha, you know Martha. She has a huge container and it's just full of chard. Like she has a chard plant that's about this tall. She's been growing it for like 3 or 4 years. So yeah, chard and some types of collard greens are very forgiving and they'll grow a long time. Here's another tomato. And these are just cuttings, right? These are cuttings I bought from the purple collard tree. And you put them in water. I mean, you put them in potting soil and you water them and then they'll eventually take root.
And you just planted them.
Yep. You order them, you get them, and you plant them. So this right here are purple radishes. They're not ready yet. I don't see the tops of them. You also see my beans.
What kind of beans are those?
So it's a mixture. So when she gave me a handful of beans, I don't know what some of them were. Some of them I've never seen before, to be honest with you. So here, this particular one for sure, this is like more like a pea. But when I was looking at this one when I planted it, it looked like a garbanzo bean to me. And you can see more coming up.
Okay.
And then here goes another pea. Some more beans. But a lot of them, some of them were white, and I had a couple of them that looked like lima beans.
Oh, okay.
So I think I'll have like a lot of lima beans this year, and white beans.
Okay.
White beans, lima beans, and I have some black beans. What else?
No string beans.
I think
green beans.
No string beans. I don't know. I didn't get any of those. But I have a rattlesnake bean, which I'm really excited about because those grow like they yield so much. So it'll be pretty crazy to see what comes of that. Oh, sorry, I forgot to show you the potatoes.
So those
it's
are
not time to pull it up, but when it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not time to say to pull
I'll have no, not yet. I'll uproot them.
Wow. You're going to have all kind of veggies growing. We're going to pull up on you. Hey, we got our bag. We coming to shop. Okay.
Onions.
Okay.
I forgot. Sorry. This is one last thing. I planted some onions, and I don't know if you can see it, but they're coming up.
And it doesn't take too long for onions to grow, right?
No, actually, I think the maturing process is long, depending on what kind. Because we have some at church that we planted like in the fall, and we're just now being able to harvest. Oh, wow. Some already, some aren't. So it just depends.
From the fall? Really?
Because there's there's some varieties that you can't harvest until like May, June. Some plants you'll find that you want to grow, it'll probably take, radishes are quick turnaround, right? A lot of people grow radishes because it's quick. Tomatoes are easy. But certain things like onions, putting on top of onion, could take a while. Some plants
Okay.
could take my melons will take 100 days to, and take 100 days to I probably get a harvest. So
Okay.
it's definitely not a sprint. So remember, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. Be patient with yourself and be patient with your plants. And if you have kids, you love your kids, you nurture your kids, nurture your plants, take
Mhm.
care of your plants. And I love how there's a couple that I listen to. They're Nancy and Hollis, and they always say, "We plant, we water, and God does the rest."
Mhm.
So remember that when you're working your land or your plants,
Mhm.
water, plant, allow God to do the rest.
All right. Well, Jasmin, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and stopping by in the mix and just giving us some tips on how to garden. I really appreciate your time. And
Mm-hmm.
for those of you that are interested in gardening, check out the links below. We're going to have the links in there for hopefully a majority of the information that you gave. Hopefully, I took really good notes. So, anyway, thank you so much for tuning in, you guys. This is In the Mix. Remember, God loves you and God just wants to use you. All right, this is In the Mix. Bye bye.